Good morning. I think we're gonna give it a go. Maybe some people will join in a few minutes, but we're just going to start whenever the presentation comes up. So there you go. Good morning to everybody who is here today, who is listening to us this morning and who's in this room. I'd like to also welcome people who are listening to us online. Yesterday was quite late, 6:30, we had another session with the same information, and there were people following us from Latin America and the Caribbean. Now we actually do this presentation at this time so that the other side of the CTBTO world can also follow us, and of course for you today. We are here to walk you through the recruitment process of the CTBTO. We're going to give you tips to, if you apply, make the best out of this experience. We also have a booth upstairs with some cards. I'll show you a little bit of that a little bit later, with also tips on how to apply and make the best out of that experience. We will be talking, my colleague and I, quite a lot, and then we will give you time for questions. I'm going to start by saying that we are very proud of working at the CTBTO. It's an organization where you really see our mandate, our contribution to that mandate every day. And it's a very small organization that does a lot with a huge mandate. And we're here to tell you that we would love you to actually join us if you have the experience, the skills that we are looking for to join the CTBTO family. It is indeed an organization that you can look back after a few years and say, this experience was really worth it. It's definitely an organization that is a good employer of choice. And who are the people that are talking to you today? That's the team. Fairly small, but very well prepared, very dedicated to and very committed to recruiting the most qualified staff for the CTBTO and also taking care of the staff in terms of training and development once they are in-house, once they join actually the organization. I am Marta Fernandez de Mazarambroz, and I am the head of recruitment and staff development. I joined the organization last year. Some of my colleagues have been here for a long time. Please raise your hands, those of them who are here. Mahmoud, Asta, Irina, Hema's here as well. She's going to introduce herself because she will be coordinating this presentation with me. Please, Hema.
Thank you, Marta. Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Hema Kularatne. I am Human Resources Officer. I will be walking you through the application, CTBTO application process today. So stay tuned. Thank you.
Okay. So we're going to talk briefly about the organization in general. That's going to be a few minutes. We have also a video from the ES to show you, and then we'll dive into the recruitment process, and we're going to fragment it in a way that we will be able to give you tips and tricks along the way, and you will then see how can you make the best out of the recruitment process and your application. You can be the best qualified candidate if we don't see that on paper in the application form. If you don't demonstrate that during a recruitment, a competency-based interview or a written test, you might be the best qualified, but you didn't show it the moment you had to. So we're here to let you know how to do that. This is the CTBTO family. That's a bit of a more expanded team. We take this picture every day. This was taken a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of months ago, actually, weeks ago. In front of the fountain of the VIC. It's a fairly small team, as you can see, very dedicated, well-trained, well-prepared people. And in general, we can say that if this works, which doesn't work now, we are about 300 staff members from a very wide diversity, very wide geographical region. We are about 91 nationalities represented. And also we take good care that we disseminate our vacancies as much as possible for everybody in the CTBTO region to hear, to learn about the CTBTO, and to feel enthusiastic to actually apply. Same thing goes for the gender. We right now have, does this work? Or I know in my heart, but I prefer if you can see it actually. Yeah, there you go. 56% women, 54% men. It's a very technical organization, and many of these areas are or were very male dominated. So not so easy actually to reach that number, and still we're making an effort to improve that percentage. So everybody's welcome to apply, and we really aim at having the most diverse workforce we can have. These are some pictures of people, real pictures of people in action, so that you can see them there doing their work, everyday work. Sometimes, in other cases, it's exception, it's exercises that the on-site inspection is doing, but just for you to see a little bit how it is. And we have 6 divisions in the organization. Some of you probably will know this by heart. Let me just walk you quickly through this, because the vacancies you will see in our website are actually in one of these divisions. And all the divisions are really constantly hiring staff. We have staffing categories that have tenure. After a couple of years, that staff member needs to leave the organization, therefore we need to recruit again. This means that we are very busy, constantly publishing vacancies and constantly looking for people like you. So there you go. We have the Office of the Executive Secretary, which is composed of several sections. The HR section is actually one of them, belongs to this. So we work in this office. We also have the Division of Administration. Here we will see posts in the areas of procurement, of general services, finance, budget, etc. We have one of these technical divisions, the International Data Center Division. There are some vacancies that are actually published now and will come in the next few weeks for posts in this division. This is, as you probably well know, the division that receives the data and analyzes it from the 337 stations that we have around the world, and are monitored and maintained by the International Monitoring System Division. And we also have vacancies that are in this division and will come also in the next few weeks. We also have the Legal and External Relations Division, very important as well, to liaise with external stakeholders, to promote the organization, to also see this from the legal perspective, from the legal side. And the on-site inspection division that is working on expanding capabilities until the treaty enters into force, is training inspectors and is conducting exercises both in Vienna as well as in the field. So these are the 6 divisions, and these divisions are always keen to actually see potential candidates applying to their posts. Let me talk to you a little bit about what you will see in our website if you have not seen it yet. You will find quite some information there, and we will be expanding this information as we go along. For us, what is really important is that we inform you of how is it if you join the organization? What kind of life are you going to have if you join us? What is the recruitment like? How does it look like? We want to demystify the process. It's not about putting the application form and thinking this is falling in the dark, and then suddenly you receive an invitation for a test or an interview. We want to explain to you, and we will do it now, what happens with your application form when you actually apply. How is a recruitment process run? Why some people say, why does it take so long? Well, because it's a lot of work and there are many stakeholders involved. And we want to do it in a solid, transparent way. And that just takes its time. You will see CTBTO benefits. You will see them there. You will see, of course, our vacancies. You will see the different staff categories. We will explain now in a minute the different contractual modalities we have. You will find information about internships, the mentoring program. How is it to live in Vienna? You don't live here. If I come there, what is it going to be like? What is Vienna like? No, and of course diversity. And here, as I mentioned, one of the flagships of the organization is, as I said, the mentoring program, which we will talk a little bit later, or actually tomorrow in the session for young professionals. So. This is Executive Secretary is as passionate as we are to invite you to join the organization if you actually have the required experience. Let me just play a very short video. It's a 2-minute video. You can also see it on the website. He will explain the same thing as I'm doing here now, being the Executive Secretary. So please listen to him. It's a 2-minute video.
Do you want to help us put an end to nuclear testing? Hi, I'm Robert Floyd, the Executive Secretary of the CTBTO. I invite you to learn more about our work and to consider joining our team of talented and dedicated people from all around the world. On the CTBTO website, you can explore how the 300 staff members of the CTBTO contribute to the global effort to ban nuclear testing everywhere, anytime, and for all time. Our mission matters for international peace and security, while also delivering important civilian and scientific benefits to our member states. We're looking for early career individuals through to experienced leaders, the best and the brightest, who are willing to apply their skills, talents, and experience to our mission. As a technical secretariat, we need people who have scientific and technical expertise, which helps ensure our unique verification system detects any nuclear explosion. Beyond that, we also need people who have passion for policy, administration, budget and finance, procurement, human resources, project management, and the law. In terms of our culture, we are an empowered, high-performing and accountable team where everyone is treated with dignity and respect. As international civil servants, integrity, professionalism and respect for diversity are our core values. They're also the words we live by every day. As the leader of this organisation, I'm committed to ensuring our team is strengthened by diversity in all forms, across gender, geography and generations. We're looking for remarkable people. I hope you will take the next step in your journey to work with us. We can't wait to meet you.
There we go. So that's the ES, also inviting people to apply. We have different contractual modalities, and we follow as part of an of the UN Common System. We actually follow several standards. You probably are familiar with some of these contractual modalities, especially with the professional staff and the general services staff. So for the professional staff, which is 2/3 actually of the organization, for these kind of positions, these positions require a university degree, relevant area, and then a series of years, minimum years of experience for you to be able to be considered for the long list, basically. And it goes, usually the UN goes from P1 all the way to P5. We start at the CTBTO at P2, where you need to have a relevant 2 years, at least 2 years of experience in that specific field of expertise. Then it goes up gradually. P3 is 5 years of experience, P4 is 7 years, P5, 10 years, etc. For these positions, the tenure actually applies. Member states want to see these positions where you have people with a great deal of accountability and decision-making in the organization rotating, and they want to see the different nationalities, diversity impregnated, so to say, throughout the years. And so usually this is the tenure that applies for these posts is 7 years, after which at least a 12-month working service needs to be done. So these positions are indeed subject to tenure. General services staff are not subject to that tenure. They have different entitlements, different conditions of service. They subject to good performance could be in those positions practically until actually they retire. And what they do is they have very technical skills. They support and they assist the professional staff so that together they can bring them the mandate forward. Also, years of experience apply. So if you see positions like for general services for professional staff, do look at the conditions. My colleague Hema is going to talk a little bit more about the conditions of service for the different contracting modalities, and do check that for before applying. We also have short-term appointments. We also have temporary assistants or temporary appointments as well. These contracts are much shorter. They can go from 1 year, they can go actually from 6 months in some cases, 1 year, maximum 2 years in some of those cases. We need these people for very specific reasons, in a very specific period of time. Maybe a colleague went to special leave without pay. We need this replaced. This colleague will come back. So the short term actually will be there for a specific period of time. It's still a very interesting contractual modality to apply, get to know the organization, get more acquainted with it. We also have consultancies. Consultants are used for very, very concrete niche fields of expertise, and they usually are not day involved in daily work. They usually come on a call-off basis. And of course, we have JPOs, junior professional officers, cost-free experts. These are actually sponsored by the member states. Some member states actually engage in these contractual modalities. We also have internships. We will talk more about that tomorrow in the session for young professionals. We have internships which are usually announced the whole year, and when there is a need, then these application forms are retrieved for the hiring divisions to analyze. Those are on the contractual modalities. We're going to now dive into the recruitment process. And for this first part, my colleague Hema is going to take over. She's going to explain everything you need to do to apply and to reflect your experience really tailored to each vacancy notice. I will take over a bit later to talk about further steps in the recruitment process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Martha. And hi again. So I will be talking about the job application process. First of all, I just wanted to emphasize what my colleague said. All our vacancies are advertised in our website. And currently, there are a couple of technical and scientific positions advertised. Also, we are working on a number of positions in the pipeline, which will be advertised shortly. Therefore, I highly recommend that you keep an eye out for those vacancies. So with that, before I start the process, I would like to emphasize how important your job application is. I would say your job application dictates your eligibility and suitability for the job. So basically, we use the information, as Martha mentioned already, information in job application to determine whether you are suitable or eligible for a given job. That is your passport to begin a career with CTBTO. So with that, let's look at. Okay, so first I would like to refer to this infographic that our recruitment team has developed for you to easily navigate through all the steps in the process. please have a close look at it. It can be found in our website under the Work With Us page. So with that, let's move to the next slide. Okay, so in the job application process, before you even decide to apply for a job, you need to do some homework. The homework is you need to understand the requirements of the job. How do you do that? You need to read the vacancy announcement, look for the duties and responsibilities, qualifications and experience sections. So as you go through the duties and responsibilities, also reflect your depth and the breadth of experience and see, understand how those things aligns with the job requirements that are being requested. So this is the first thing that you should do. And then if you are convinced that you have those required qualifications and experience, then you can decide to go to the next step to apply for a job. So to apply for a job, our job application process has 3 main components. The first one is to create a profile. I have mentioned here some pain points that I wanted to just bring to your attention. When we as recruiters, we find sometimes difficult to contact the successful candidates because they use their official email address. Then by the time we contact them, they are in transition from one job to the other. Our email never lands in their inbox. Therefore, my advice to you is to use your personal email address as contact information. Moving to the next layers, please indicate your proficiency in all of the CTBTO languages. Also note that fluency in English is a mandatory requirement to work for the CTBTO. So fluency is defined as being fluent in all the 4 areas of the language, that is speaking, writing, reading, and understanding. Okay, so with that information, we will now go on to the most important part of the application process, that is the CTBTO Employment Information Form. We call it EIF. So this form, please note that this form, uploading this form to your profile is a mandatory requirement. When we screen applications, if we do not see your EIF, unfortunately, we cannot bring you forward in the process. So this means uploading a CV or a resume instead of an EIF is not considered a substitute. So now we are mainly going to move to the most important parts. In the application, you have a space to write your description of duties, and there is another space to write your achievement. So I'm going to talk to you in detail how you're going to write these things, like how you're going to highlight your experience to the way that we think is like the best way, and that this increase your chances of getting longlisted. So description of duties. This is the space that you can articulate your directly related experience and knowledge for the job. Basically, you're going to tell the reader how your past responsibilities makes you the best candidate for this job. So with this, before I go on to the technical side of it, how to write, let's look at a vacancy advertisement right now in our website, and just recap some points that I already mentioned. So this job is right now currently running with the closing date of end of July. And the job title, as you see, is Seismo-Acoustic Engineering Officer. Now the level of the post is a P3. Let's move to the next page. As I mentioned, first thing you understand is what is the job is about. So read the duties and responsibilities. I have highlighted action verbs that we have used in the vacancy announcement. You need to read these action verbs together with the associate deliverables. By this way, you will be able to understand what exactly is expected from the incumbent of this job should you end up getting this job. So this is a full picture that you will get about the job. That's the homework that you should do even before deciding to apply for a post. And then page, as my colleague also informed you, we follow the International Civil Service Commission standards, this framework. According to this framework, there is standard qualifications, education, and experience required. So, for example, as we know, this is a P3 job, and as you see, for education, a university degree is required in the related field, and 5 years of relevant working experience is required. For example, if we talk about a P4 position, that would be a master's degree with 7 years of related working experience. So, please note these are mandatory requirements. If you are going to apply for a P3 position, you should have a university degree and 5 years of relevant working experience. So if you do not have, that means this is an eliminating criteria. We won't be able to move forward your application. And then also I need to make mention of this qualification. When you see 2 types of requirements in the qualification. One is required, the other one is desirable. So any required experience that we have mentioned here is mandatory. You need to have this. When it comes to desirable, these desirable requirements are not mandatory, but these are factors that we recruiters will use if you have to narrow down the list. For some reason, like we have a lot of candidates, so then now we use those criteria. Therefore, my advice to you is to mention also your desirable criteria if you have in the job application, so that we know you have it, you will be long listed. And the last part, please, I just wanted to make mention about the languages. As I explained before, fluency in English is a mandatory requirement. Okay, with that, let's move on to the next page to see how we can actually do this. So this is the real exercise that everybody should do before you start filling the application. So this is to show your alignment with the job requirements with your experience. So what you should do first is, now you read a couple of times already the VA, the vacancy announcement. Pick those important bullet points and take a piece of paper, draw a T, we call it a T technique, and put those bullet points in one side of the paper. Those are the duties and responsibilities required by the position. Then reflect, read one point by one point and reflect your depth and the breadth of the experience and see your alignment with that and translate it in your own words to say what you have. For example, the requirement of the job in the example is designing an outsourcing strategy and establishing partnerships. You can write, this is again an example, words, supported an outreach campaign and assisted manager in liaising with potential partners. Directly involved in the development of key partnerships. When we read this as HR and the hiring panel reads this, they understand you have directly related experience. So this is how you should portray every single point that you have the related experience. Once you do this exercise, I will give you some tips here. Also, you need to do it on a different piece of paper and read it again with the tips that I have given. And then once you have the final version, you can copy and paste it in the application. Okay, so the tips are showcase your alignment with the job. This is exactly what we did. And then focus on most applicable skills. Meaning, you must be doing many other areas in your current job, because we all grow with the job and we inherit other responsibilities. But if it is not really applicable for the job, there is not really added value that you mention all of these things, because you will now provide a big text and your actual focus could be lost in there. Therefore, focus on the applicable skills and be concise and brief, avoid long sentences. I have seen in the listing some candidates copy paste from generic job descriptions. This is not, it is not adding any value. So please, what we want to see in your EIF is your related experience articulated in your own words. Okay? And avoid passive sentence construction. Also, passive sentences are not really encouraged, because we want to see what you have done. So you can see, I did this. And also use of action verbs and powerful phrases. And my colleague Martha is going to talk more about action verbs. Therefore, I am not going to talk too much because action verb will be there during the whole process. We advertisement we use action verbs. In writing this, you are going to use action verbs, and also in the interview, she will explain you clearly. You will use action verbs, very important. And then the other thing is emphasize your role. This is really, really important because we are assessing you as a candidate, not your team. So you need to write your role in the example, not what your team did. Very important. So then the last thing is cluster duties to main responsibilities. This will come after you do this exercise with all the bullet points, responsibilities, and then you write. After that, you do another read to see whether there is any responsibilities, duties everywhere. Then you have to put them together, cluster them to the main responsibilities, and also try and match this, also put them together related ones. So by this way, it's easier for the reader to read and then to grasp the information, and this will give you a high chance of getting a long research. Okay. So with that, let's move to the next page. This is how to write the achievement. I know that most of us find it easy to write the description of duties because these are daily tasks that you do in a simple language, if you say so. But achievements is something that we really have to think how to write it. And I will say before I go further, when we do our work on daily basis, we often forget what we achieve. So therefore, it's very advisable that you take start a Word document. Whenever you achieve something, start writing this. So by the time you have your application, either you postpone it or you just see, oh, the deadline is next weekend. Then you might forget in this rush that all the achievements. If you have this page that will come handy, that you also have the achievements, then you can pick the job-related achievement and make it like formulate. Then let's see how to formulate. I would like to first talk about the tips, and then we will see in the example how we use the tips. So this space is for you to provide an overview of the positive results that you have accomplished or any achievement you have gained. And then also be clear about your contribution. You need to talk about what you did. And then try and quantify your achievement. Use figures and percentages. By this way, you can make your statement more compelling. And then highlight the impact of your achievement. You can also highlight what happened because of your achievement. What was the impact on your team? What was the impact on the organization? For example, let's read what we have in the screen. Successfully designed and delivered 10 career fairs to large audiences of over 1,000 participants from all CTBTO regions with the aim to position CTBTO as an employer of choice. As a result, candidate pool increased by 10%. If you will see this, please note the usage of action verb, design and delivered, and also use how the quantitative data is used in this thing. And I have also mentioned the impact on the organization. As a result, candidate pool increased by 10%. So this is how you should now fill those two important spaces, duties and achievement. I must also say again, be very realistic about what you write in the duties and the achievements. Also the job title and your employer. This should all be aligned. If a misalignment is detected at any time during the recruitment process by the hiring panel, your credibility will really lose very fast. That reminds me of an example of a panel that I said years ago. Two candidates used exactly the same example to demonstrate one competency. So we listened to the first candidate and then some other came and this candidate came. They took the same exact example from the previous employer and then exactly same. So then obviously the panel was now want to do like two people cannot in the same project play the leadership role. One leadership role, two people cannot be. So when panel now dig into more information in the EIF, we figure that one candidate is the leader, the manager, like head of the section. The other one is one of the subordinate. So of course, when that example was explained, it was not that visible, but because of the second candidate, we realized the misalignment. So this is all to say that misalignment can be found at any point in a recruitment process. Therefore, be very realistic of what you say in the job, in the job, and then also in the achievement, your organization, your role, all of these. Okay. Then we move on to the next slide. Sorry, I pushed it by mistake. Okay. So with all of this, we have now come to the last component, also very important in the application process. This component, this is the cover letter. So this is the place that you can really articulate, emphasize your value proposition. So what do you mean by that? Tell us briefly, explain us why you want the job in the first place, what would you bring to the job, and tell us how your overall depth and breadth of experience makes you a really suitable candidate, good fit. What is the alignment of your experience and the requirements of the job? And then also briefly indicate your motivation for applying. Remember to highlight the salient points in the cover letter. There is no need to repeat what you already wrote in the EIF because we have it already. And then customize your cover letter to the vacancy. This is very important because we as recruiters, we see most of the time that candidates take the time to actually change the text of the cover letter and they forget the cover letter is addressed to another UN organization or some private sector organization. And they even forget that this cover letter they prepared for also for a different position, not the real position that you're trying to highlight your achievement and match, but the title is different. Therefore, please have a look before you attach it. Have a look to make sure that your cover letter is really customized to the vacancy. And then elaborate elements to succeed. This is even your place to personalize your application now. This is the place. You can also talk about your personal characters, such as like your strengths, your attributes, and tell us how those things would support your success in this role. Basically, this is your opportunity to tell your story, to tell us how your past responsibilities make you a best candidate for this position. So take the opportunity and to tell the story so that we will be convinced, the hiring panel will be convinced, we will be unwasted. Once you follow all of these, you will really see the difference in how you progress to the next stages. With that, I have come to the end of my presentation. I would also like to request you that as you appreciate, we do a lot of talent acquisition activities right now. So therefore, when you submit the application, there will be a place that you say, they ask, how did you see this job? Please take the time to select the right drop down. If it is not in the drop down, please say other and write where you saw it. By this way, we can collect the data analytics to see the impact of all our work. Okay, with that, thank you very much. If you have any questions, please feel free to answer at the end of the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hema. That was really insightful, and there's a lot of information there. You also have, in a nutshell, what Hema mentioned in this slide. Let me add one more thing, Hema. It's funny, but it's not a joke. When I was working at the OSCE, not in one, not in two, not in three, but in many cases, I saw people who had applied who were experts in public law without the L. Pubic law. please read what you write several times before you submit it, because they had relevant experience, and of course they will consider further if that was the case. But it just, it steals a smile, and also it really says to me, has this person really read the thing before submitting? It's just a matter of minutes, and it really makes an impact, no? Okay. You have already submitted your application form. You have done everything Helma said. You have been longlisted by us. The hiring manager has done a first screening, has said, hey, this looks good. A subject matter expert has confirmed what that hiring manager has said, and the director of the division has endorsed that. Your name appears in the next step, which is this one. So what's going to happen next? This is what happens. One of us is going to call you to invite you to one of these assessments, or both. They're both eliminatory. You go through the first one and then through the next one, and we're just invited to. It really depends on the process. But the technical assessment is mandatory. It will happen if you apply. And how does it happen? It can be in one of these two forms, or if decided by the hiring division, in both forms. You can be invited to an asynchronous interview. And what is that? Are you familiar with this sort of interviewing? Platforms are called Modern Hire, Recruiter, HireView. No? Songroom? Okay. So when you receive one of these invitations, we will let you know you have been shortlisted. You're one of several candidates. You're one of really several candidates, but you have really left behind many candidates who did not comply, who did not express very well what they wanted to say. You are there together with others, and when you receive this, you will get a letter from us saying, you are going to be invited to this. You have about 5 days to 1 week in the comfort of your time in your homes to practice in front of your computer how to respond to a question with a timer and then be recorded. So when you have practiced this interview and you press start, then it starts, there's no way back, you will get a question on your screen. And you have time to think about it and take notes. It's usually 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes maximum. And then the timer starts for you to respond to the question, and that is what is recorded. So the panel member will see you responding to that question. Usually it's 2 to 3 questions. Usually it's an exercise that lasts about 15 minutes. People say it's a kind of a very stressful thing because you're not talking to anybody, you're talking to your own camera. But it's still, it's a practice that is here to stay. Many organizations use it in the private and the public sector, and it gives us on the other side the opportunity to hear you, to see how you express yourself, to see how your thoughts are structured in a very short period of time. These assessments are purely technical. You will not get questions here like, did you apply and tell me about? No. If it's in project management, the question will be on project management. You will be tested on this. Same thing goes for the test. So if you get from us an invitation to a written test, we will ask you, are you available on this day at this time? Yes, I am. Okay. On that day, at that time, you get an email with the attachments needed and the questions that you need to fill out. And you get usually 1 hour to 2 hours to do it. It depends on how many questions, the complexity of the questions, etc. Don't expect extravagant questions. It's questions really related to what Hilma was saying. Questions that are related to the job you have applied to. And again, the test is very technical. We want to discard candidates who have applied, who have said they know all this, but we don't have the technical experience. We really need that technical experience because before we go further, especially in an organization like this. So that's what you get. And usually it's either or, one assessment or the other. In some cases, as I said, it's both. And not everybody who goes to this step goes further. It's eliminatory. We will assess, we will see who are the best and the strongest candidates, the strongest scores, and those will go further. And this assessment is scored by the panel that you will see in your interview afterwards. That's on this. Let's say you passed and you're now in a competency-based interview. We're going to call you and we're going to ask you if you're available on this day for about 45 minutes. Who is not familiar with competency-based interviews? You're all familiar with competency-based. Why do we use competency-based interviews? There are many other sorts of interviews. You have closed question interviews, open question, you have biographical, you have critical incident interviews. But human resources is not an exact science. So I guess you guys are expert in exact sciences. This is not an exact science. We're dealing with human beings. This is the best method to get to know you, the best way in the limited time we have. This is the one that gives the highest rate of success. This is why we use competency-based. And we believe that this, combined with the technical assessment, will give us a very good overview of how you would do in a job if you are selected. So we have a couple of competencies here: professionalism, accountability, communication, client orientation, etc., etc. We don't consider them arbitrarily. Oh, accountability, yeah, no, this is when you really feel responsible. There is a very well-defined definition about accountability, and the panel is trained to look at this definition and follow it. So it's not that, we're just, talking out of the blue. We're really, really following a compendium and a manual that we have. And we have the definition of that, and the positive and the negative indicators. How is it when you demonstrate that you are client-oriented? Well, things like this. How is it when you don't demonstrate it? Well, this. So the panel is actually trained to see this. Let me tell you more about it. This is one of the competencies, for example, commitment to continuous learning, and how important this is in an organization like ours, which is very technical. You need to be abreast, keep abreast of this. So you have, for example, positive indicators would be to keep abreast of new developments, to seek to actually keep yourself up to date and develop yourself, develop others, help colleagues develop themselves, show willingness to learn. How important that is. I am here, I got the job, I'm not going to sit back, I'm going to continue learning. That's what we are looking for. So this is one of the competencies, is very, very important. And how do we ask these questions? We will always ask you to go back to your experience. Why? Because a competency is behavior that is successful in a specific situation. If you showed it in the past, usually you will show it in the future in more or less the same situation. That's why we are looking for this. So we will always ask you, think about a relevant example from your past experience. My tip, unless it's the amazing example of the year, please do not go to examples that are older of 3, 4, 5 years, because what does it tell me that you demonstrated how client-oriented you were 20 years ago? It doesn't say much. It has to be recent, and it has to be relevant. If you can pick an example from your experience that is very relevant to the post you applied for, you will add points. Again, you will be assessed against the vacancy notice, but there will be other candidates there. You want to make the best out of it. Really follow my tips and Hema's tips as well. So, past behavior, recent, relevant if possible, prepare these examples. How do I prepare? I take also what Hema was saying. I have been a candidate many times. I have interviewed thousands of people. My tip is, whenever something happens to me, hey, something happened and I had an important role, I write it down. I take my notebook and I write it down, because it's incredible how much we can forget about something that happened some years ago or even 2 months ago. When is the time to prepare for one of these interviews? I have 10 relevant examples in my head right now that I could explain to you, where I actually consider I displayed different competencies. So I can tell them to you right now because I know them. I really write them down, and I put my star and I put my structure so that they're really fresh when I apply. It's important to focus on your role. This I say many times, I will repeat it again and again. How many times we hear recruiters, the amazing example with a role when you just went there to take a small position and that's it. You just assisted with something and that's it. And the example is huge, but your role is very small. It's much better to do it the other way around. Even if the example is not, spectacular, something horrible happened and then I was this, your role is what we're looking for. It's not your role and the role of the rest of the people who were there. You can also say, I did this together with the team. We did this, but my role was. Don't be scared of that because we're not going to hire your team. We're going to hire you. So we're not interested in what the other people did. So that's really, really important. And it's a methodology. It's true. It's a technique. It's important for you to practice the STAR method, where you say when something happened, what you did, and what was the outcome of your result, of your behavior, of your competency. You also can say what you learned. We all make mistakes. We all learn from those mistakes. Please say it as well. Because then we will think, okay, the person made a mistake there, that happened, okay, but maybe since the person learned that in the future, the person will also take that lesson learned with. No? And what else can I tell you about this? The panel is trained to structure the answer, the STAR, situation, task, action, result. Don't forget actually to mention these 4 elements. Try to do it in this order. If possible, try to do it in this order because they will say, okay, when something happened, this happened in 2022, I was in this organization, this was my post, I was leading a team of blah, blah, this was the project, this is what happened, and this was the result. So that's the important thing as well. These interviews are not in person. We will contact you to do them online via Teams. This team is, as I said before, small but incredibly dedicated. We will call you the day before, and we will walk you through how the process is going to be. Calm you down. Check the technology so that when you go into that interview, you really focus on your answers and on really engaging with the panel. And it's a service that I don't think any organization does it. So we really will be there for you. Expect more or less 45 minutes. At the beginning, the panel will introduce themselves. You will see the primary hiring manager, usually the director or her delegate. You will see 2 people from different divisions as well. You will see us, we'll be there, but we will turn off the camera. We are ex officio, we are HR, and we are there as custodians of the recruitment process to ensure that this process is being done according to the standards that we have set, which are very high, and we are very focused on confidential, objective, transparent, and fair. You will see, as I said, the family members, and also what Hima was saying about the action verbs is not the same to say, I wrote to this person and I contacted this other person and I called this other. No, it's much better I liaised. That verb encompasses so much. It's so charged with meaning. In other languages, I'm sure as well, in English, for sure, action verbs are extremely important. So do use them. Look for synonyms. Don't use verbs that are very fatigue already, that you have used all the time. If you ensure, in the end it's like, okay, ensure, use other synonyms as well, so that these verbs remain in the brains of the panel members. That's also important. And you have here some action verbs. There's so much literature about this in the internet. You can look for it. We also took something for you to see the difference between passive and active verb using. It's not the same to say that the revenue was increased than to say, I increased the revenue by 10%. My team and I did that. It's really not the same. It doesn't come across the same. So it has a lot of power to say that. These cards are up in our bins. Please pick one up. Well, if you flip it, you will see our QR code takes you directly to our vacancies. And here we have summarized the 10 hacks, 10 tips we want to give you. And you will be already by now pretty used to all the things, because all the things we've said here are reflected here. Just pick please step number 8. Practice timing yourself. You cannot believe how fast the time goes. There's 3 minutes that you have for the asynchronous interview to respond to a question. It goes the same for an interview. Panel members are listening. Minute, 2. With 30 seconds, they start like, oh my God, we have the next question, the next candidate, and they're not going to be listening to it anymore. Time yourself, competency based with those, that's their method. Should not take longer than 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes. It should not really take longer than that. And with this, you will keep the thing going, you will keep the energy and the attention. And embrace the result, no matter what it happens. I've been a candidate many times. I didn't get the job on many occasions. There's not one single one where I did not learn something. Expose yourself so that when the worst thing happens, you're used to it. It's like, okay, another interview. I'll go there, no problem. That's what we are looking at here. Last thing, follow us on LinkedIn. We are very active there. We have, as Hema mentioned as well, several contracts with several companies that do put platforms out there so that we, sister organizations like the OPCW and the IAEA, and also other organizations, we go there, we chat with the candidates, we tell them, events. We also talk to them about vacancies that we have. We do staff events. We lead also a HR practitioners network. We talk to them about best practices. We will also tell you when we do that, so that you see that we are interested and committed and happy to do our job. And we also do virtual job fairs, which is what I was saying before, where we actually get to chat with candidates about their experience. We'll do more things. We're thinking of many other things, also putting short videos on the website for you to practice things, for you to also remember all the things that we said today. It will come very early. We will put more information there. For now, this is the information that we have. And I think that's all. I'm sure you have questions, and I'm sure we can expand a little bit in some of the areas. So Hema and I will be answering to your questions. There is a question on the chat, which I will read in a minute. I'd just like to ask if somebody has a question here in the room. Thank you. Thank you. I cannot see. Any questions? Previous one? Okay. Good. Yes.
Are there any possibilities for interpreters or translators to be employed at the CTBTO?
The translators and interpreters are usually a pool of staff that is used not only for our organization but for other organizations in the Vienna International Center. So we do not have positions exactly for this, because it's actually, as I said, a pool of interpreters and translators. We do have a pipeline for related positions that come once in a while for events that we have when we want to hire people. We have actually a pipeline that doesn't necessarily have to be in that area. Anything you would like to? Yeah.
Okay, so that means if I was interested in a translator or interpreter related position, I would have to apply at a different part of the...
Yes, and there are other organizations in the Vienna International Center that do actually announce these positions. And as I said, some of them work directly for their international organizations, and others are actually used for common services for the different organizations. Yeah.
I see. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. We have one question there. Somebody else over there? Yes? Yes.
Hello. For example, in my case, my mother language is Spanish. So I was wondering if you need to, if I put forward an application, I would need like an IELTS test or a Cambridge test or something like this to demonstrate ability with my language.
With English speaking. Yeah. The only thing you have to say at the moment of the application is that you're fluent in English. We'll take that, because that's what, I will make you sign something that actually attests that you're saying the truth there. So that's the only thing we will ask you at that time. But of course, you will need to demonstrate that you have that level of English as you go through the process. And the first thing is this assessment through these asynchronous interviews and or a test, and then definitely an interview. So we put Spanish because that's your mother tongue, mine too. But if you have English at the level that we require, it is indeed something that is going to actually then push you back. Yeah. So do make sure to put English there, whatever level you have, of course. But do consider then that English at a proficiency level is required. Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome. Yes.
Thank you so much for your presentation. The recruitment team, Anastasia Kulikova, CYG member. I have a question about internships. So are they considered to be a work experience somehow? Thank you.
Sorry, can you repeat the question? If internships
Are internships considered to be a work experience somehow?
Yes, they are. They cannot be considered exactly one-to-one to professional experience. And it's a very valid question because some organizations do consider more relevance, other less. In our case, we do consider internships, considering that it cannot be one-to-one to professional experience. But if it's relevant experience in an internship to the post that you have applied, we do take that into account. Yes. We will have tomorrow a session more on internships if you're interested as well. So. We have a question here which says, thank you very much for all the information. I asked where internship experiences count or what's okay, yeah, this is the same question. So I hope we responded to that as well. Let's take more questions from the, nope, are you sure? Yes, please.
Thanks for the information. I just have a question also related to the working experience. If you work at the university, for example, as postdoc, PhD, or whatever, does it also count as work experience or is it treated differently?
Can you say the position again?
Or if you're like PhD or postdoc at university, is it also counts as working experience or is it something different?
I mean, it usually counts, what counts really is the relevant professional experience, but of course, having a PhD or a master's degree, a bachelor's degree is not the same, obviously. So as you go up, this experience, what you have been exposed to, is actually considered. Having said that, education credentials is one thing, professional experience is a different one. So it will be considered, but as I said, we need to actually make that distinction. For some positions, master's degree is required, a bachelor's degree is not enough. And you will see that as well in the vacancy notice. This is also very relevant, especially for technical positions. How high actually have you gone? So obviously a PhD is a very relevant piece of experience, yeah.
Yeah, if you have a contract at the university because you work at the university.
Yeah, that does count actually as a yeah. I mean, if it's a contract, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, it has to be relevant though, so obviously it has to be. Yes.
Okay, my name is Sam from Jordan. Just asking, I passed all this procedure and you asked me for a referee or reference letters, and you got bad reference letters from some people who don't like me. What is your?
Oh wow, that's done by my colleagues actually. I'm sure my colleagues can respond to your question. Thank you. Okay, so references is an important part of the selection and the hiring process. So let's say we call you, we say, you have been selected for this position, this is the offer, I accepted. Then comes the other part of the hiring process, which is we want references. We need to go through a medical clearance as well in this organization. Usually what we do is we ask for references you actually have put in the application form. We will ask supervisors as well. And we don't ask for only one, we ask for several. So this is also taken into consideration that we don't only ask one. Some people usually can say, well, this person does this better than this. That's what we usually get as the most negative thing. Usually the references are pretty good. And the people that actually give us references really take the time to respond to our questions and to be very detailed about why they think that this person did well. But of course, if we only get negative references, that does ring a bell. Actually, it does raise a flag. It's not that we are going to immediately discard it, but this is then being taken into consideration and is internally discussed. I have not, I mean, it's not usually the case, so yeah.
I know some,
Unless,
I think exactly the opposite what you said. You ask the person to ask for to ask for another person to give permission. You said he gave a very bad recommendation for you. Please ask us to send for another person to take a good position. Oh.
so you mean that we would actually discard this candidate and go to the next one?
The candidate, you will ask the candidate to
Yes.
give you another person?
Yes, there are definitely different ways to do references. We will go all the way and we will exhaust the possibilities of references of a candidate that has been appointed by the executive secretary before discarding that candidate for that reason. And as I said, is really a real exception. Raymond, my colleague Raymond is there. He's the head staff administration. They do actually the references. Maybe you want to add something, Raymond? Over there. That guy over there.
Actually, we don't only look at one referee, right? One thing, you have personal references that you provide. I suggest you put those personal references who will provide you with good feedback, right? For the others, we will check with the supervisors. Now, if we receive a bad reference, then it doesn't necessarily mean that we will take that alone on board. If the other references are positive, then we'll do a sort of balance. And it also depends on what the feedback is given. If it's subjective, then it puts the question also what the feedback was, the validity of the feedback. But if the person gives facts on what is provided, then it puts a bit more weight on the feedback. Yeah? All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Raymond. Yes, we have another question there.
It's clear that diversity is important in the organization. How exactly do you use diversity criteria in the hiring process?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, definitely very, very important. To say, this is very clear that the competency, the recruitment process is merit-based. First step is merit-based. So you need to demonstrate that you have what it takes to do the job. Having said that, what we do in recruitment is we disseminate as much as possible. We try to attract the broadest pool and give everybody the chance to understand what is the recruitment process so that they can actually be in the position to do a good job throughout the process. Diversity is considered at all stages. It's important to know, okay, at this stage of the process, do we really have the diversity that was represented at the beginning of the process? At the beginning of the process, do we really have a broad pool? At the end of the process, the appointing authority will receive several names. Hopefully, our aim is that we'll receive the maximum number of names of candidates that are prepared to do the job, so that the decision can be taken again based on merit, but also taking into consideration factors that you know, on diversity and geographical representation and on gender. And you have seen the percentage before. We're really making a big effort there to have it. This starts really with what we are doing here right now, disseminating, spreading the word, and attracting the broadest pool. That's what we are doing. Yes, please. In the meantime, there's another question on whether CTBTO technical forums count towards the experience. Again, it's relevant experience thrown in. I think there are some experiences like consultancies, for example. You can be a consultant 6 months here, 3 months there, another 2 months here. In the employment form, you don't have a limited number of employment records, but it's going to be a document like this to put month by month the consultancies that you have done. If it is at all possible for you to cluster period of your experience when you were a consultant for different clients, for example, understand that we will see it, but then we will be able to actually capture that employment record in a broader, with a broader period of time, so to say, instead of putting every single employment record. Also the diplomas, the certificates. My recommendation is if you're going to put 100, if you have, just put the ones that are really relevant to the job, as Hema was saying before. That will catch the eye of the recruiter and the hiring manager much more than if you put all of them, also the ones that are not relevant for that specific instance. Yeah. Yes, please.
It's an option in application form which is related to the time that we can do our things in our country and come to Vienna for the job if we accept it. I don't remember what's the name, but I want to know if it is important, the duration that we say in that application form.
You mean when you apply, how valid your application form is, or?
No, it's an option that we clarify that how much week we need to.
Okay, yeah.
Notice period, yeah. Important.
The notice period. Okay. Look, I mean, this is a question that is asked at the interview stage. We ask at the very end. If the candidate has a question, what is the availability? Usually the availability is 2 to 3 months if we consider, the international organizations, private sector, etc. The notice period when you would like ideally the person to start is the vacancy notice. That's the ideal scenario. But if the candidate that we actually want, the strongest candidate, can start a bit later, we can wait for that person. So the availability in any case is discussed during the interview. Yeah. What is really important is whatever you say in the interview, please stick to it. Because sometimes we have people say, no, I'm available in 2 weeks, get selected, and then I have a project now, it's going to be 2-3 months. Please, try to be as exact as possible, because otherwise then, it just sets expectations that are just, unnecessary expectations. So, more questions, please. Yes.
Another sort of diversity-related question. How do you account for competencies that may have been acquired in outside of the field or in non-work situations, like if you were a volunteer board member or a volunteer somewhere or something else?
Of course, it's a competency. You showed it in a specific moment of your professional life. It's definitely considered, because I show competencies at home as well. We just had a candidate who was talking about professional sport where they do, and then how the competencies were. Definitely they will be considered. However, again, the more you go into the relevant experience and how you show it there, the stronger that response will be for that specific competency. So you can definitely show it, but as I said, it will make it stronger and more relevant for the panel. It will be you will relate to this, like, oh, this person has demonstrated this competency exactly in this sort of situation. Having said that, of course, being a volunteer, of course, I mean, especially in this environment, absolutely, that's also valid, yeah. More questions, please. No. Maria, is there any IA models that help the recruiting process? use our eyes, our human beings, our experience, our dedication to actually go through the process. Of course, we use the system that you apply to. This system, you will be asked some questions when you're applying. Do you really have 5 years? Do you really have this? Do you really have this other, whatever, master's degree in the related field? That's what we can do for now. The system is not, artificial intelligence, it doesn't go that far. But of course, we do have a system that helps us indicate which candidates actually do have the experience that we are looking for. Remember that we, human resources, what we do is initial stages. Afterwards, as I said, we're custodians of the process. We accompany the panel members. The first part is the long list. There we do, of course, use our system and these questions, but much more complex than that. Maybe the next SnT we can say something like this. Something else, please. Anything else? Okay, otherwise, we are upstairs. Please come see us. Please take the little cars. They will prove very useful, I promise. And thank you very much for being here today. Thank you for those who are following us online as well. We are here for you. Contact us. We are also on LinkedIn, and we really, really hope to see you and your names in application forms and in recruitment processes. Thank you very much. Thank you.